The night was thick with the hush of distant thunder, the kind that rattles shutters only after its lightning has already vanished behind dark horizons. Salt-laden winds worried the ragged sails of the shy maid as she slipped through the mouth of the Blackwater, hugging the coastline like a shadow afraid of candlelight. Beneath her deck, lanterns were hooded, and even the sea itself seemed to conspire in silence, lifting the hull on gentle swells, so the creak of timbers might not betray the precious cargo within. In the cramped cabin aft, John Connington studied the boy who had once been only young Griff. Candle glow limned the planes of the lad's face, a face so fiercely familiar that in certain angles it conjured the mournful echo of a silver-haired prince singing to his unborn heir by the banks of the Trident. Aegon's hands rested atop the map, spread across the cedar table. Quills, inkpots, and wax seals lay scattered between neat rows of painted castles. Yet the young man's long fingers worried the vellum's edges more than they traced the rightful path of conquest. He was 19 now, tall and supple with the wiry grace of a water dancer. Darker hair than Rhaegar's fell in careless waves to his collar, but his eyes held the same strange lilac cast, brighter perhaps like dawn breaking through violet shutters. "Storms end first," Connington murmured, voice graveled by years in exile. He tapped the gnarled forefinger of his maimed hand on the towering blazon of the Baratheon keep. "Take the cradle of Robert's rebellion, and the realm will remember which dragon it once served." "A castle is stones and mortar," Aegon replied, though doubt fluttered under his calm like a moth beating wings in a jar. "I must win hearts. Stormlord or street urchin, they must choose me over the boy king." "They will," came a softer voice from behind. Septa Lemore, veiled as ever, stepped into the lantern light, her smile a steady benediction. "You bear the memory of Rhaegar in every breath. Let them look upon you and remember songs half forgotten." Rhaegar. The name still pulled taut, the hidden strings inside Aegon's chest. He had no cradle memory of the Silver Prince, only the tales John Connington whispered on cold nights to keep despair at bay. A harp strummed beneath a weeping willow, rubies scattering like drops of dragon blood upon a river that would never run clear. But in the hush before sleep, Aegon dreamt of strong arms lifting him high above tilted crowns, of a lullaby in High Valyrian, of love fierce as wildfire and just as consuming. Beyond the cabin, boots slipped across deckboards as the Golden Company's officers came and went. Homeless men bound together by a crown of forged promises. Sir Franklin Flowers, broad as an ox and twice as stubborn, bellowed orders to furl the last sail before sunrise. Black Balak oiled the edge of his crescent blade, humming a Volantine dirge that mistook grief for courage. 6,000 sellswords lay below in the belly of the great cog and her sister ships, their chests pressed tight against pikes and polearms, all for a boy who held more future than coin. At dawn's blush, wisps of tangerine fog ribboned the shallows of Cape Wrath. The fleet fanned into a ragged crescent, hulls kissing the shoals with gentle sighs. Longboats splashed, oars dipped. Barefoot stormlanders working crab pots stared as armored strangers waded ashore. Yet when Aegon followed, sword-belted, cloaked the dark indigo of twilight, they stared harder still, crossing themselves as if in prayer. Some saw in him the ghost of the last dragon. Others saw hope. All knelt. He had been schooled for that moment. Speak little, nod graciously. Let them rise as loyal men. But the sea breeze tasted of freedom, and his throat fluttered with words unscripted. "Stand," he told them. And when they did not at once obey, he bent and lifted the nearest gray-haired fisherman by the elbow. "My father died for a realm that forgot honor. I would rather it remembered kindness." The old man wept, salt tears lost amid salt spray. Word spread as quick as wildfire across gorse-clad hills. By nightfall, banners of half-forgotten houses rode the wind beside the black and red of Targaryen. The Stormlords were a proud folk. Many still cursed Robert's ghost for trading his hammer for cheap wine. They gathered in drafty halls to weigh a boy king's Lannister leash against the dragon, reborn in mortal flesh. Yet no castle was won on hope alone. Storm's End loomed upon its promontory like the clenched fist of some titan risen from the sea. Granite walls 80 feet thick, wards carved with ancient runes against siegecraft sorcery. Legend said the stones themselves remembered the screams of Aegon, the Conqueror's eldest sister, whose stormblood forged the seat. Within, Lord Eldon Estermont held garrison for King Tommen, though rumor claimed even the fat Green Knight choked on Lannister gold. So Connington's captains counseled caution, but Aegon refused siege ladders. "I will not starve my father's people," he said. "Open the gates by dawn or face me beneath them at dusk." On the third day, a single rider emerged beneath the massive drum tower. No herald's trumpet sounded. Wind alone moaned through the arrow slits. The rider bore a banner dyed Tyrell green above the crowned stag of Tommen's new minted coin. "The Queen's colors, borrowed law. The boy on the Iron Throne names you Pretender," the messenger declared. "Bend the knee, take the black, and mercy may yet find you." Mercy. The word struck the air like frost. Aegon rode forth, his palfrey's hooves stomping seawater into silver mist. "Tell the Queen Regent her mercy is worth less than the lies her father's crossbow whispered. Tell the King's lair I never forgot how it feels to scream for breath beneath the rubble of our house. Tell King Tommen I wish him sweet dreams, for the dawn's justice will wake him soon enough." He leaned, fingers brushing the rider's stirrup in farewell. "Tell them the dragon flies home." That night torches ringed storms end in a blaze so bright the seabirds fled inland. Ziga Towers stood idle. No ram beat upon the main gate. Instead, Connington unrolled a tattered parchment heavy with wax. "Open," he roared, and men did. What walked through the breach was not battering ram or ballista bolt, but a stream of the castle's own small folk. Wives, blacksmiths, and farriers, who had slipped beneath Sallyport hinges under cover of the torch's glare. "They starve under Estermont's larders," Connington told any who questioned. "They will not starve beneath a dragon who calls them kin." At dawn the portcullis yawned wide. Lord Eldon Estermont, cheeks jowled and greasy, was dragged forth in golden chains filched from the Lannister treasury. "I kept faith," he squealed as the Stormlords jeered. "They swore my debts forgiven." Aegon raised a gloved hand. Silence dropped like an axe. "You kept faith with coin. I keep faith with men." And before Estermont could whimper his reply, Aegon turned to the rampant walls. "Storm's End stands for Stormlanders. Let any man who will not pledge his sword to that simple truth step aside." None did. The garrison knelt, swords laid at his feet. When Aegon climbed the battlements, the dawn broke at his back, hallowing him in gold. Later, the small castle sept rang with bells as copper wands chimed against great bronze hearts. A young septon with trembling hands anointed Aegon with 7 oils. The warrior for courage, the father for justice, the smith for shaping torn kingdoms anew. Each bead of oil slit downward across his brow like tears. When the last toll shivered the rafters, Aegon rose, crownless still, but wearing the ghost of dragons long buried. The hush shivered his heart. He tasted poppy myrrh and salt upon his tongue. Outside voices swelled. "King Aegon, Aegon VI, Aegon!" He wanted to believe their fervor, but belief is a treacherous mirror. Every reflection shows a different face. So he spoke quiet, mindful of the thinness of the moment's ice. "Remember," he said, "that I am only a man." The crowd shouted back that he was more. Word flew faster than ravens on strong winds. In Highgarden's perfumed courts, Marguerite Tyrell read the parchment thrice before passing it to her grandmother. "Another king," Lady Olenna muttered. "The realm breeds them like fleas." Yet she folded the parchment into a violet envelope and gave orders that no more wagons of grain crossed the Blackwater. Tyrell coin would wait to see whether this dragon boy proved fire or smoke. At Sunspear, Princess Arianne listened while the desert wind howled like wolves trapped within alabaster walls. Her cousins stirred restlessly, haunted by Oberyn's blood upon the dragon pit sands. "He is Elias' son," they whispered. "At last vengeance walks with a heartbeat." But Prince Doran lingered in his garden, arthritic fingers tracing the petals of a yellow rose bred to wilt faster than truth. "Vengeance is a song best unsung," he sighed. Yet the ravens he loosed flew north all the same. In King's Landing, Cersei Lannister paced the crimson carpet of the small council chamber, wine sloshing from her goblet in sweaty arcs. Pycelle droned of coin shortages, of the royal fleet anchored half-rotten in Blackwater Bay, while Qyburn warned of Sellswords marching under black banners. Nonsense, Cersei spat. The Golden Company swore no Targaryen would ever sit the Iron Throne. She eyed the dwarf chain left vacant at the table's end. We will buy their loyalty anew, or bleed them until they remember their oaths. But loyalty, like wildfire, often finds its own course. On Maidenpool's wharf, dockhands cheered as Aegon's ships glided in siege formation. They had heard of a young man kneeling beside old fishermen, of coin minted with Rhaegar's solemn profile on one side, and a three-headed dragon crowned with seven-pointed star on the other. Farmers whispered of debts forgiven. Minstrel girls sang of purple eyes softer than summer lilac. Highborn captains sent envoys, offering bread and salt in place of blood. Still, a crown weighed heavier than myths. Connington convened a war council in Storm's End's ancient rain-round keep. Maps littered the long oak table, pinned by dirks and tankards. King's Landing next, Sir Franklin urged, voice booming across stone. Strike before the Lannisters buy fresh steel. Others argued for Riverlands first, rallying the Tully remnants. Then Black Balak thumped his great blade, pointing south. Dorne will bring fire to fire, win the sand snakes, cage the lion. Aegon listened, lips pressed. He had learned diplomacy at Lamar's knee, strategy from Halden half-maesters, long nights of Savas, and courage from a father he never knew. Arguments flew like daggers. He caught them all. The realm's heart beats in the reach, he said at last. Its harvest feeds 10 kingdoms. Win Highgarden, and the Iron Throne crumbles without siege. Gasps, mutters. Slow nods. A bold plan, but boldness birthed dragons and kingdoms both. That dusk he climbed Storm's End's dizzying tower alone. Far below, the sea battered rocks in endless lament. Above, gulls cried over dusk-streaked clouds. He imagined courtiers bending weary knees. Imagined Tommen's confused tears, Cersei's raving fury, Daenerys' dragons wheeling above desert ruin. Somewhere beyond the darkling world, a mother's whisper pressed against the soul of a kingdom. Aegon, my brave boy, the song must not end. He did not sleep. Instead, he walked the ramparts until moonset, accompanied only by memories that were not his and by future ghosts yet unborn. Dawn poured amber over the eastern horizon when Connington found him. Together they watched the sky burn pink. Did you ever fear? Aegon asked. Only once, Connington said, when I thought I had lost you. I was never lost, Aegon whispered. I simply had not come home. Below, the courtyard stirred. Soldiers strapped breastplates. Smiths stoked forges, couriers loosened falcons for flight. The Golden Company's horns cut through cool dawn air, 3 notes that once heralded war across the Rhoyne. But atop the tower, the boy king closed his eyes and saw a land reborn. He smelled apple blossom on the breeze, heard children laughing in streets free of fear, felt cobbled lanes pulse beneath the hoofbeats of just rule. Somewhere deep, a dragon stirred, carving new constellations of fire into the marrow of his bones. Let us begin, he said. So the host marched. Great plumes of dirt billowed beneath mailed boots, and banners cracked like sails before the steady thrum of destiny's wind. From torrent-scarred gullies they rose, from swaying cedar forests and wheat-bright valleys, from fishing shacks and moss-green castles, none remembered by name, men and women alike who had tasted the ash of broken promises and found in it the seed of hope. They marched behind a boy who carried history on slender shoulders, yet who looked upon them not as subjects, but as kin. They crossed the Mander at dusk, a ribbon of bronze beneath the failing sun, and the Riverlanders who manned the crossing lowered their spears without a word. Some stared, mouths carved round with wonder. Others touched fingertips to breastplates, as though to steady lightning struck hearts. Tales fluttered northward. How the dragon prince dismounted to carry a lame girl across a muddy ford. How he listened to hedge knights recite lost lineages. How he laughed, Gods, how he laughed, like wind chimes in high summer. Charms no maester could measure swirled about him, weaving cloak and crown from mere humanity. In high garden halls, Lady Olenna read each whispered report with a pursed mouth. The realm does so love its silver princelings, she told her granddaughter. They forget silver tarnishes quicker than iron rusts. But when spy after spy returned, breathless, claiming a dragon risen from Leven's snow of ashes, even steel-spined Olenna found her quills shaking. So she penned a letter sealed with thyme and rose petals. A garden survives by pruning. Best choose your thorns wisely. The scroll reached Storm's End days after the host had gone. Aegon slit the cherry wax seal himself. He read Olenna's looping script, lips curving. Then he passed the note to Connington. The Queen of Thorns smells blood in the frost, the older man said. We will pluck her rose or be pricked. Northward, wolves heard distant howls of change. At Winterfell, Jon Snow walked the broken battlements, his cloak snapping. Ghost prowled beside him, crimson stare fixed on silent fields. News rode the King's Road quicker than ravens these days, borne on tongues eager for new songs. Aegon VI, Rhaegar's son, conqueror returned. Jon felt old ice shift within his chest and wondered what face duty would wear by next moonrise. In the Erie's icy halls, little Lord Robert clutched his falcon and shrieked at the mention of dragons, yet beneath the moon door, Petyr Baelish frowned, fingers drumming against his silver mockingbird pin. He had invested in coin, not legends. Legends ruined budgets. They made good men stupid and bad men bold. Worse, they convinced small folk to dream of things other than warm bread and quiet nights. Dreams gave peasants teeth. He penned dispatches to River Run and Harrenhal, weaving contingency after contingency, as though webs could catch fire. But shadow and flame danced in impossible patterns. In the back rooms of taverns along the Roserwad, minstrels plucked lutes, singing of a prince born in blood and saved in flame, who now marched to reclaim the dawn stolen from him at birth. Girls pressed daisies into their hair, boys whittled wooden dragons. Elders pulled dusty tomes from cupboards to read by guttering candlelight. Valyrian prophecy, the dragon's rebirth, the prince that was promised. Prophecy is a mirror too. It shows each believer only what they crave. On the 15th day since Storm's End bent the knee, Aegon's host set camp upon gentle hills carpeted with purple vetch and gray salsify. Distant orchards scented the twilight air with bruised fruit and honey. Haldan Halfmaester erected a pavilion striped crimson and black, the first true banner of House Targaryen flown in Westeros since dragons last cast shadows upon Harrenhal's melted towers. When Aegon stepped inside, the hush carried with it a reverence more powerful than steel. Around the map table stood lords lately sworn. Lord Penrose of Parchments, Lady Fell of Fellwood with her storm-bright eyes, the Knight of Griefhall, and two nameless captains of pikemen who refused title till their king was crowned. Yet crown or not, they hailed him as such. Strategy wove under torchlight. The Reach's strength was manifold, bloated, but scattered to feed a war of roses in the north and hold Sansa Stark's winter crown at bay. If Margaery kept her betrothal to Tommen, the Tyrells would bleed for the lion. But if the Queen of Thorns sensed rot, she might prune ties and graft new vines to dragons. Aegon weighed each whisper, each rumor. At length he drew an arc across the map, from Bitterbridge to Longtable, curving down to Ciderhall and the Blueburn beyond. We strike here, he decided, carving imaginary fire through fertile valleys. Roadways ripe for harvest, yet lightly guarded. Win the farmers' granaries, and knights will follow their bread. Connington's brow furrowed. It leaves our flank open to King's Landing. It invites them, Aegon countered. Let the lion charge. Let my Uncle Jaime ride hard to save sacks of grain while his sister sees her coffers starve. A king who feeds his realm need not guard every gate. Risk sang sharp in the air. Yet risk is a language dragons know well. They planned till dawn, till candles guttered and parchment edges curled. When Aegon at last dismissed the council, he lingered alone beneath the pavilion's dark canvas. Fingers traced the threads of Blackfire's embroidered hilt. Had his namesake not once swung that blade in a similar dream of conquest? Aegon shoved the thought aside. He would forge new legend, one not marred by fratricide or exile. Outside, dew-jeweled spear points. Dawn unfurled across the hills in gilded sheets, and birds traded sleep for song. Soldiers rose, tents struck, banners furled, fires stamped. The host moved as a living creature, tens of thousands of footsteps synchronizing into a heartbeat older than any one of them. Down winding lanes, apple blossoms shook free to drift like soft snow upon shoulders and helms. By midday, they reached the bridge at Bitterbridge, and the garrison there, more merchants than men-at-arms, lowered the portcullis without plea or protest. They had heard the songs. Bread carts rattled into camp, flour choking the air in pale clouds. Aegon paid thrice market price from his personal coffers, then gave the merchants a stamped promise of repayment besides. A king's word is coin, he told them, and the merchants gaped at such largesse. In taverns that night, the tale grew wilder. How Rhaegar's son poured gold like wine, how politely he bowed to an innkeep's lame wife. Every retelling gilded him further, until by next dawn, he walked in stories armored head to toe, in sunrise. In King's Landing, bells tolled a warning none could ignore. All along muddy Flea Bottom, gossip slithered through alleyways like rats. A dragon prince marches. Small folk spat Lannister sigils out of cheap wine flagons. Gold cloaks tightened patrols, but many watched the horizon for banners black and red. Hope is contagious, tyranny only exhausting. Cersei's council dissolved into uproar. Lord Mace Tyrell demanded command of the city's garrison. Pycelle sniffled about empty grain stores. Qyburn promised curious salvation in jars of green fire stacked in forgotten tunnels beneath the Red Keep. Every rule has exceptions, he purred, even the ones that killed your half-wit father. But Cersei thought not of wildfire nor prophecy that named her children doomed. Only of a boy with her twins' dead beloved's eyes marching to tear her world asunder. That night she ordered the bells of Baelor rung at each hour, to remind the city who held the hammers. Hammers wrought noise, not loyalty. Across the Honeywine, House Hightower's beacon flared a sullen red, signifying war upon their borders. Lord Leighton's ravens flew west, seeking alliances older than Andal's. Old Town whispered of maesters recalling Targaryen kings, who once cooled their forges in dragonflame, and of novices tracing genealogy to prove Aegon's claim by lost scrolls, smuggled from Summerhall. 2 centuries of conquest had left embers deep in the citadel stones, embers that now glowed when breathed upon by talk of prophecy. Meanwhile, far from the roar of bells and the yawning mouths of hungry cities, Aegon's host came upon Ciderhall's orchards. Rows upon rows of russet-leaf trees bowed heavy with fruit. The Fossaways expected siege, yet when their scouts beheld the advancing dragon banners, they found themselves unexpectedly thirsty for change. In the great hall that smelled of pressed apples and polished pine, Sir Simon Fossaway knelt, presenting a bushel of jade-green fruit. "From our branches, your grace," he said, "to feed your dreams." A single apple, perfect, unblemished, rolled into Aegon's palm. He bit, juice trailing his wrist. "Sweet," he said, though the apple tasted of victory more than sugar. "Rise, Sir Simon. Keep your orchards, keep your men, keep your honor. All I ask is your faith." Sir Simon rose, tears unashamed. Thus one house fell into line, and with it, the harvests of half the Mander Valley. That evening, Lemore found Aegon beneath a loquat tree, fingers sticky with nectar. "You give half your treasury away," she murmured. "I gain tenfold in hearts," he replied. "And yet hearts can break." Aegon looked toward the distant north where stars blinked like watchful eyes. "If they break, I will mend them," he promised. As though such mending were as simple as stitching cloth. But perhaps he believed it could be. Perhaps that belief was the very miracle the realm required. 3 nights later, the Golden Company's outriders clashed with Sir Hobber Redwine's spearmen along the Blueburn's banks. Moonlight glinted off pike heads. The river ran red with more banners than blood. The Tyrell vassal had marched in haste, leaving half his levies behind. Aegon's vanguard encircled them like wolves, hemming them against murky water and reeds. Dawn revealed Sir Hobber's men kneeling, swords stuck upright in sodden earth. Aegon accepted their surrender, granted parole, and returned the captured banners with a single charge. Ride home and speak truth of what you have seen. They did, voices trembling. Truth rides swifter than lies when carried by shame. By midsummer, word reached every corner of the Reach. The Dragon Prince fought battles, measured in mercy as much as swordplay. Disease retreated before his quartermasters. His camps left orchards unburnt. Wounded enemies found bread in his wagons, not blades at their throats. War, waged without savagery. Unsettled men who only understood conquest by ruin. Yet no good deed passes without envy. Far across the sunset sea, in a city of burnt pyramids, Daenerys Targaryen watched the tide scale back of Drogon's Circle Meereen's harbor, and felt the world shift beneath her bare feet. Aegon, her nephew, her father's legacy. The Sellsworth Dario laughed at the news. Sir Barristan smiled, remembering an infant saved from ashes. The Khaleesi's heart burned with twin flames of joy and dread. The dance of the dragons had once pitted sister against brother, nephew against aunt. History casts long shadows, yet dragons longer still. She stroked Drogon's obsidian scales, whispering dreams only fire can answer. In the Riverlands, Brienne of Tarth guided Podrick Payne through the charred remains of villages abandoned to bandits. She heard peasants whisper of a boy king whose hands bled only when he cut fruit, who knelt to bandage orphans' feet. Podrick's eyes shone like pennies in moonlight. "It sounds true," he said. Brienne tightened her sword belt. Truth was a blade sharper than Oathkeeper. All the while, Aegon marched, never faster than hope could follow, never slower than doubt could catch. Fields sprouted green behind him, clouds cleared. He laughed with squires, prayed beside septons, consulted half-blind veterans on weather signs. Connington watched in wary wonder. He had thought to crown a boy. He found instead a legend walking in daylight. Yet Connington, who knew infection lingered beneath fairest skin, kept poultices ready for the day doubt split wide. That day bled closer in the form of a single rider, dust trailing his gallop like smoke. He rode under a banner of red, gold, and winter white. The lion, the stag, and the rose entwined. A parley, a bargain, or a trap. Aegon bid him speak before the assembled host. "My lords," the rider announced, sweating beneath sun-blasted mail. "My lady Margaery, Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, entreats the prince called Aegon to lay down arms and enter King's Landing a guest of peace. Her grace desires to discuss mutual paths to prosperity." Connington spat. Cersei's own puppets now call her queen? This reeks of Lannister wine. Yet Aegon stepped forward. "Tell your queen I will parley. In person beneath the walls of Bitterbridge, 3 nights hence. Let her bring what guard she will. I will come with 12 companions only. Should any harm befall me, may the gods witness the Reach burn root to bud." The threat pierced the air, measured but cold as deep water. The rider paled. He bowed, wheeled, and fled down the dusty road. When his plumes vanished beyond orchards, the camp erupted in argument. But Aegon's will stood fast. "I would win the realm with words if they'll serve." Iron melts under dragonfire. Hearts under truth. That night, he dreamed of black stone corridors lit by sconces of blue fire. A woman walked beside him, face obscured by falling petals. Were they roses or blood? And she carried a crown shaped like a ring of swords. She offered it with trembling hands. Aegon reached, but the blades parted, twisting into wings. From those wings, a single feather drifted down, piercing his palm. He woke with a gasp, moonlight silvering sweat on his brow. When sunrise cracked the horizon, he donned simple riding leathers. 12 companions followed. Connington, Lemore, Halden, Black Balak, Sir Franklin, Lady Fell, the Knight of Griefhall, and 5 young squires, bound by oath and wonder. They rode to Bitterbridge beneath a sky that promised rain but withheld it. Thunderheads nodded above the world, brooding like gods uncertain of judgment. Bitterbridge's fields sprawled golden. Wheat bowed in prayer-like reverence as two hosts faced one another across a shallow valley. On the far hill, Lord Mace Tyrell glittered in green enameled plate. Behind him stood armored columns of Reach Knights, banners bright with golden roses. At the valley's heart waited a silk pavilion striped Tyrell green and Baratheon gold. Margaery herself greeted Aegon. She wore a gown magnificent as sunrise, petals sewn along every fold. Yet her eyes held quiet storms. "My lord," she said, voice low. "Or should I say, my king?" "Call me Aegon," he answered, bowing. No man alive had witnessed a Targaryen beau before a Tyrell queen. The gasp of onlookers rippled like wind through grass. Margaery's lips curved, ambiguous as prophecy. She led him inside. Within, the air smelled of spiced arbor wine and dried lavender. No guards accompanied them. Between them stood a table laid with bread, salt, and a single dagger, hilt worked in gold filigree shaped as intertwining roses and dragons. Margaery gestured. "The laws of hospitality. Let us be frank." So, they broke bread. They salted it. They cut it. They ate. The dagger nestled harmlessly between them. Margaery poured wine, sipped, and traced a single finger along the rim of her goblet. "The realm cannot stomach another war," she said. "Children starve in the crownlands. Bandits roam the King's Road. Every man who marches beneath your banner leaves a field untended. My banner promises those fields will bloom," he replied, keeping his voice soft. "Hope is a garden." She allowed. "But gardens require seasons. Until then," she placed her hand over his. "The Queen in King's Landing stands ready to share her throne. Marry me, Aegon. Become king in truth, without further blood. Let children's bellies grow fat on autumn harvest, not hang empty while men burn. Thou." Her touch was warm, her eyes earnest as dusk. She was beautiful too, everyone said so. But beauty alone could not hide the cunning of House Tyrell. Yet cunning need not be cruelty. Aegon studied her face, saw the quicksilver of ambition shot through with genuine compassion. He pictured a crown of swords bent into wings. He pictured futures. Tommen set aside gently, or perhaps shipped to Old Town as a novice. Cersei contained, Jaime neutered by vows. Daenerys arriving to find a nephew with Queen at side and realm at heel. Was that peace? Or postponement of storms? Outside, thunder cracked. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then drumming. In the patter, Aegon heard years of exile, the crack of whips in sellsword camps, the hush of Connington's voice telling bedtime tales of a boy who would heal the world. He met Margaery's gaze. "I would marry peace itself if it meant no child went hungry. But peace cannot root in poisoned soil. Cersei's crimes salt the earth. The Lannisters must be judged." "Dandy. And my lord father?" Margaery asked, voice a petal trembling. "Must flowers bleed for lions?" "Not if they cut the lion's leash," he answered. The pause between them stretched, straining like iron at forge heat. At last, she withdrew her hand. "Marry me once King's Landing falls," she said, bitterness lacing honey. "Spare my brother, my house. Share the Reach's bounty. Together we shall rebuild." A treaty in all but name. He thought of hearts won, of promises kept. Yet another thought slipped between. That of a silver-haired aunt who rode dragons beyond oceans, who claimed conquests right by blood older than his. The realm could not suffer two dragons, but perhaps it could cradle mates of the same flight. He nodded slowly. "So be it. I march on King's Landing by fortnight's end." "Send your father word. Let no Tyrell sword bar my path. In return, I will treat prisoners with mercy, feed the city with Reach grain. And when the smoke clears..." He reached for the dagger. It lay gleaming, unused. "I will claim you as queen." Margaery breathed out, as though she had held the wind itself in her lungs. She extended her hand. They sealed the pact in silence, both aware that storms still brewed beyond tent canvas. Storms that cared little for human bargains. When Aegon exited, rain had washed dust from every banner till colors shone richer than gem blood. Connington looked to him, brows raised. Aegon nodded once. The old knight smiled, a weary, hopeful smile, as of a man tasting fruit from a sapling he once thought dead. The host raised camp that night beneath drizzle. Fires hissed but burned. Songs rose but softly, respectful of the rain's hush. Amid the damp air, Aegon walked among tents without guards, accepting bowls of barley stew, trading stories with sappers and smiths. He called each man brother, each woman sister. He listened more than spoke, and when he left a circle, silence followed, thick with awe. Later, he found Connington cleaning the claws of his gauntlet. "King's Landing," the old man said without looking up. "It will not fall as gently as Storm's End." "I know. And Daenerys?" Aegon pressed his cloak closer. "I will write to her. Invite her to council. Offer what place she will. Dragons belong together." Connington at last met his eyes. "Some dragons," he whispered, "were born to devour each other." Aegon said nothing more. He stared into the gloom, where rain blurred torches into hollows of trembling gold. Somewhere in that blur, he pictured a throne forged of swords, each blade forged of vow or sin. He pictured two dragons circling above, shadows crossing. Then he pictured neither throne nor dragons, only fields, orchards, rivers, children laughing on sun-dappled lanes. Could a king conquer power only to relinquish it? Could peace be war's final victory? He did not know. But as the rain eased, he lifted his face to the weeping sky and let the last cool drops baptize him anew. Dawn broke clear, as though the heavens themselves agreed to grant one breath of calm before destiny's reckoning. Horns sounded, banners unfurled, drying swiftly in rising heat. The army he had nursed from rumor and exile turned east toward the King's Road. With each mile, more boots joined, more songs swelled, until the very earth seemed to pulse with a lover's heartbeat. Ahead rose the smoke-stained silhouette of King's Landing. Spires tipped in pale dawn flame, walls scarred by past rebellions yet standing defiant. Somewhere beyond those walls, a queen fumed, a boy king prayed, and wildfire slumbered like a serpent in stone-ribbed caverns. In the soft hush before the first trumpet signaled advance, Aegon stared upon the city where his family once ruled, loved, bled, and burned. A thin smile ghosted his lips, part sorrow, part promise. Behind him, 6,000 sellswords knelt in dust, swords drawn like candles outstretched to the wind. Stormlanders raised shields painted with three-headed dragons. Reachmen lifted banners half rose, half dragon, bearing witness to a marriage unborn yet already shaping tomorrow. Small folk marched barefoot, carrying loaf and lamp, singing songs of midnight kingdoms reborn in dawn. Aegon drew his sword. Not Blackfire, not yet, but a simple steel blade honed by a farrier who had never seen the walls of King's Landing. The edge caught sunrise, flaring white. He lifted it aloft. "Home," he whispered, and spurred his horse forward. The host moved as one, and the dragon rode the wind. Ka. Leather creaked as Aegon leaned over the parapet of Stokeworth's crumbling watchtower, moonlight washing the jagged stones like silvered frost. Below him, the sprawling bivouac of his host flickered with 1,000 muted flames, each campfire an ember of promise scattered across dark fields. The city's outer lights wavered only 4 leagues distant, a bruised glow smudging the horizon where King's Landing clung to Blackwater Bay like a wounded beast wary of dawn. Somewhere beyond those walls, bells tolled an uneven prayer, counting hours that felt thin as spun glass. The boy who had once been young Griff tried to breathe the sea salt air as calmly as when he'd first tasted it on the Shy Maid. Yet each breath snagged on thoughts of walls, of secrets behind walls, of wildfire lurking in arteries of brick and bone. The map spread across the merlons beside him showed concentric arcs, pinpricks marking trebuchet emplacements, supply wagons, Healer tents set safely back from the forward trenches. Still, the Black River of the King's Road cleaved their positions from the city, a silent moat of memory. On that road, Robert Baratheon had once led his rebels south. On that road, Tywin's lions had ridden to sack a capital drunk on victory. Now, a dragon marched it in reverse. Footsteps softened by patience approached across the tower's topmost stair. John Connington ascended, crimson cloak damp with night dew, gauntleted fingers trailing the moss-slick wall. "My prince," he greeted, voice pitched low as if sound itself must bow. Scout riders returned. The gold cloaks line their palisade from the Dragon Gate to the Rush Gate, 3 ranks deep. Lord Mace's levies hold the old gate as agreed, but Lannister banners still fly over the King's Gate and Mudgate. Cersei means to keep her claws on the river and the docks. "Then her wand." Aegon nodded, eyes never leaving the distant shimmer. "And Margaery?" Her standard flies beside the Gate of the Gods, bud to bud with the Faith Militant's 7-pointed star. Septons preach peace by candlelight, yet prisoners trickle through the postern doors at dawn. Rebels, sparrows, whomever Cersei deems disloyal. Then done so. Fear grows like mold in damp cellars. Aegon folded the map, tucking it beneath his arm. "When sunrise comes, we scrub those cellars clean." Connington's breath frosted in the chill. "Your Grace, if we strike tomorrow, the risk walks before us in chains if we delay." Aegon slid a gloved hand over the gnarled edge of stone. "Every hour Tommen's gaolers swing another hammer at innocence." Connington bowed his head, knowing the conversation could turn no other way. "Then at first light, we encircle the King's Gate and Mudgate both. Haldan's engineers swear the earth is soft enough for sappers to burrow beneath the south wall." "Not yet." Aegon's voice cut gentle but firm. "We threaten, we show steel, but we do not spill the blood of small folk penned inside. Let Cersei hear our drums, let her feel her own walls closing, and let hunger whisper night terrors. She'll lash out. When she does, we give her nothing to strike but wind." "She may loose wildfire," Connington warned. "She may," Aegon agreed, violet eyes glinting in moonsheen. "So we snuff every spark before it leaps." Cersei Lannister stared at her reflection in a cracked mirror. The glass veined like a spider's broken web across her cheek and brow. Candlelight stuttered over the jagged fissure, splitting her image into shards. One fragment showed the lioness queen resplendent in cloth of gold. Another bared hollows under her eyes where sleep had fled days before. Ser Boros Blount stood behind her, plate clanking whenever his weight shifted. Yet even the King's Guard's presence felt threadbare against the specters that stalked the Red Keep's echoing passageways. "How many this time?" she demanded without turning. Blount cleared his throat. 43, Your Grace." Gold cloaks deserting by night boat or climbing down the walls on knotted sheets. They carry tales of the dragon heir feeding children in the camps. Cersei's fist cracked the vanity edge, pain hot against her knuckles. "Find their families. Hang them over the Mudgate at first light. Let deserters see what loyalty cost them." "You?" She dismissed him. "Alone." She traced one broken vein across the mirror. Imagined it a fissure in the realm itself. Aegon Targaryen, another ghost from her youth risen to torment her. She remembered his father's molten rubies on the trident, remembered the hush when Rhaegar's armor caught sun. They called him beautiful, but beauty had burned with his corpse. Now his son marched, woven of the same frail mirage, yet flesh enough to rattle chains. Prophecy's rotten breath hissed in Cersei's ear. "Queen you will be, until another comes, younger and more beautiful. Not this boy." She swore, "Not while Lannister blood pumps through my son's veins." In the dim glow of half-spent candles, she crossed to a locked oaken chest and drew forth a slim green vial. Stoppered with black wax, glass glimmered, luminous, alive. Her hand shook. Qyburn's voice echoed from memory. 900 pots remain beneath the Guildhall vaults, my queen. Send the word, and I shall coax them to sing. A treasonous song, but one she would teach the city if it meant drowning her enemies in green flame. She returned the vial to its cradle and pressed the lid shut. Beyond the walls, thunder rolled, not from skies but from drums that rose with pre-dawn murk. Ziga drums, slow and sonorous, matching the heartbeat of giants. Cersei closed her eyes, inhaled the scent of smoke from distant cook fires drifting through the arrow slits. Tomorrow's dawn would paint the city red. She prayed, though she had forgotten which gods still listened, that it would be Aegon's blood, not hers, staining the cobbles. Dawn crept pale and thin across the fields like a child afraid of waking monsters. Yet wake it did, gilding helmets and spear tips where Aegon's legions formed. The Golden Company lined the King's Road in glittering ranks, elephants stamping plumes of dust where fields had once grown barley. Black Balak's curved blade rested across his lap as he knelt in silent prayer to nameless Rhoynar ancestors. Sir Franklin Flowers laughed with his pikemen, passing flasks of spiced wine. Laughter rang brittle, but laughter all the same. Stormland banners cracked high, roses twined with dragons, the old black and red of conquest flying unabashed beside the green apple of Fossaway and the blue falling star of House Penrose. Aegon rode the line astride a dappled gray destrier, armor burnished steel chased with crimson scrollwork, no richer than any captain's. He paused by each company, sharing single words, sometimes a jest, sometimes a vow. When he reached the place where sappers hefted pick and mattock, he dismounted, knelt in fresh-turned earth, and pressed his bare palm to the soil. Not yet, he told them again. Soft. This ground remembers too much death. He pulled himself upright and turned toward the city's looming mass. Ramparts studded with scorpions squatted atop their foundation like a grizzled soldier's brow. The high white walls had yellowed under centuries of smoke, scarred where dragonfire once licked, but did not melt. Between the Lion Gate and the Mud Gate sprawled shanties and peddlers' huts pressed tight against the stone, and behind those slums rose the domes and steeples of the city proper, treacherously beautiful in sunrise. Connington joined him. "We march 3 columns," he said, pointing with his maimed hand. "Left flank under Lady fell along the Roserad to draw fire from the Gate of the Gods. My center pounds the King's Gate. Right flank, Sir Franklin pressing the river road to Mud Gate. No rams until the city answers with steel." "No," Aegon said. "Rams stand idle, trebuchets alone. Loft stones, not flame, over their walls. Let them break bread ovens, not bones." Connington frowned. "Your Grace, a gentle siege emboldens defenders. A butcher's siege breeds tombs." Aegon mounted again. "I want songs, not charnel stench." A horn sounded, one long mournful note that rolled the length of the host. The ground itself seemed to lean forward as columns advanced. Drum beats mapped each pace. Elephants swayed, their howdah towers bristling with archers in striped Myrish sashes. Ziga towers creaked behind ox teams, but at a signal from Black Balak, they halted wide of arrow range. Only lines of foot and horse continued. Gold cloaks atop the battlements hooted derision, loosing a scatter of arrows. Most fell short, thunking in soft loam. Lady Fell's Stormlanders raised shields and kept marching, their boots sloshing through shallow irrigation ditches. From the King's Gate rampart, a herald bedecked in Lannister red flung taunts. "Aegon the Bastard, young mummer's boy, pretender of bows and beggars." Aegon answered by raising his helm's visor and bowing, as if to a pageant crowd, which only spurred fresh arrows raining uselessly into dirt. By mid-morning, the 3 columns stood a bowshot from the wall. Trumpets cut the air. Silence followed, wide enough to hear gulls cry over the Blackwater. Aegon rode forward alone, stopping within earshot of the King's Gate portcullis. Above, the metal-studded gates bore fresh scorch marks where someone had tested wildfire. He looked up, meeting the eyes of pikemen peering through murder holes. "I am Aegon of House Targaryen, 6th of my name," he called, voice carrying over the battlements like ground drum thunder. "I claim the throne forged by my forebears. Open these gates, and no man here will suffer. Keep them barred, and hunger alone, shall compel them open. A hush. Then laughter, brittle, almost frightened. A copper pot crashed down, missing him by yards. He did not flinch. The laughter died. He wheeled and returned to his lines. Trebuchets answered his unspoken order, arms hissing skyward. Stones arced, trailing canvas streamers painted with the seven-pointed star of the faith. Each streamer inscribed with a single word, mercy. They struck the walls with dull booms. Stone cracking stone, but little rubble fell. Another volley, another, measured, unhurried. No firepots, no siege oil. The message thundered louder than flame. Inside the city, Cersei watched from Maegor's holdfast. Across the court, Qyburn tugged at a loose thread of his pale gray robe, eyes glittering. A bold sermon, he murmured. Mercy upon stone yields no throne. Mercy is for the weak, Cersei hissed. She strode to the rampart window, lips curling. He plays at honor as fools play at tourney. Shall we crown him with ribbons, too? Qyburn inclined his head. The wildfire caches remain primed. Scorpions atop the gatehouses stand ready, a single spark. Not yet, she said, echoing her foe beyond the walls. Let him beat his breast against granite. When his soldiers weaken, we light the night green. Then in the sept of Baelor, Margaery knelt before the High Sparrow, her veil trembling. They could breach by week's end, she whispered. If the Queen Mother unleashes her alchemists, thousands will die. We must compel surrender. The Sparrow's ragged cloak of fraying sackcloth draped his stooped frame, but his eyes burned crystal clear. The faith serves truth alone. If Queen Cersei sheds innocent blood, the Seven will judge her. He placed two bony fingers beneath Margaery's chin. And if the Dragon Prince keeps his vow of mercy, perhaps a new covenant blooms. Margaery bowed her head. Somewhere deep in the sept's twisted corridors, bells tolled midday prayer. She felt each peal slug her ribcage. Faith, fear, duty merging until she could not count whose voice beat loudest. Outside the city, siege lines solidified like tree roots. Engineers dug trenches, but filled them with stagnant canals, meant not for assault, but to catch incoming pitch. Tents rose behind earthen revetments, their rows neat as orchard groves. Within Aegon's command pavilion, Haldon Half-Maester unrolled fresh parchment, scribbling figures. 7,000 small folk thus far, he reported. Walked out through the pisswater gate under white flags since dawn. They come with nothing. No coin. No bread. Our granaries in Erstwood and Horsemill suffice a fortnight, no more. We'll ration, Aegon said. And when rations run dry, then we open Crownland storehouses. He shook his head before Haldon could protest. Yes, the risk of spoilage. Yes, the logistics. But every empty stomach filled is a sword sheathed. Connington pounded the map table. Wars are not won by bread alone. Perhaps this one is, Aegon answered quietly. In that pause, black Balak burst through the canvas flap, crimson droplets splattering his lamellar. Scouts caught a Lannister outrider near the Roserad. He carried this. Balak tossed a parchment heavy with broken wax. Connington read, face hardening. A sortie planned tonight. 300 horse under Sir Lancel to ride out the Lion Gate and burn our food wagons. Aegon considered. We hamper them with trenches, but the right flank supply lines remain exposed beyond the Suckmud flats. He straightened. We meet them but capture, don't kill. Prisoners weigh heavier than corpses. That twilight, moonless and mottled by cloud, Aegon's personal honor guard rode stealthy steps along a low ridge above the King Road ruts. Owls hooted in cedar stands. Distant frogs croaked where irrigation ditches brimmed. Haldon's figures had proved true. 300 gold-liveried riders spilled from the Lion Gate in arrowhead formation, cloaks muffling their banners. Their hooves drummed soft on dusty stones, horns silent so as not to wake the dragon's ire. Connington signaled. Torches flared along the ridge, sudden as noon sun. The Lannister column reined up in alarm, but too late. From wheat-colored scrub emerged 200 Stormlander spears, cutting retreat. Sir Lancel rode at their head, face gaunt, blue eyes haunted, the scars of Blackwater still torquing his cheek. He raised his sword, called surrender before blood need spill. Yet one reckless rider charged. Arrow knocked. The shaft kissed Connington's breastplate, deflected. Black Balak's crescent blade parted the rider's wrist. He fell shrieking. Blood dark. Silence. Aegon spurred forward beneath white and red heraldry. "No more," he said, voice wind-still in the hush. "Dismount. Lay steel at my feet. You ride home to tell what mercy bought you." Helmets clattered as men obeyed. Even Sir Lancel, tears bright in torchlight, knelt, proffering sword and shame. Aegon accepted, touched the blades flat to the knight's shoulder. "Go," he said, "and remember that lions roar loudest when fed pride, not fear." When dawn painted the siege lines rose gold, Lancel survivors walked the city road unarmed, each bearing a wheel of barley bread gifted by Aegon's bakers. Gold cloaks watching from parapets shouted fury, but seeing their comrades alive, some lowered eyes. Rumor, like yeast, made the rounds of bakeries and bathhouses, swelling with heat. The dragon spares, the lion devours. That afternoon a thin column of robed sparrows emerged at the gate of the gods, white flags lofted high. The High Sparrow himself led them, barefoot, hair wind-tangled. Aegon met him halfway between sharpened stakes and drooling scorpions. They spoke in low tones none overheard, only saw. When they parted, the sparrow left carrying a sealed scroll, stamped with a dragon above seven-pointed star. Inside the sepultured chambers beneath the sept, he read it again and again. Lips cracked. It pledged restoration of the faith militants' rights, restitution for the crown's excess taxes, and a personal vow by Aegon to kneel before the mother's altar upon coronation. Not since Jaehaerys the Conciliator. He whispered, tears etching grit from his beard. He summoned his most trusted brother-sisters. Before sunset, 7 dozen Sparrow brothers laid down cudgels, picking up needle thread to sew new banners. A dragon cradled by the 7. Cersei's spies reported the treachery by moonrise. Fury consumed her, hot as napalm oil. In the Red Keep's cellars, she and Qyburn descended torchlit staircases, past vaults sealed since Aerys' reign. Iron doors groaned. Inside, rank sweet alchemical smoke wreathed hundreds of clay pots painted with demon sigils. One cracked faintly as she passed, and a trickle of viridescent fluid steamed upon the flagstones. Qyburn smiled. "Fire that drinks water," he crooned. "A dragon cannot contest such appetite." Above ground, Aegon walked among makeshift infirmaries, where leeches floated in glass jars and lavender poultices cooled fevers. He knelt beside a lad, no older than 14. Gut sliced by a misfired scorpion bolt lodged yesterday. The boy's skin waxed pale, each breath rattling thin. Aegon took his sweat-damp hand. "Name?" "Dre," the boy whispered. "Dre of where?" "No home, lord. Squire to no one. Till your men let me bear water. Wanted to see dragons." "Oh." Aegon smiled, though grief knifed him. "You have." He pressed his palm to the lad's brow. "Rest. I will sit until you dream." Hours later, Dre's pulse failed. Aegon closed the lids over hazel eyes, rose with a knot of stone in his throat. Outside the infirmary, Lemore waited. "These are wounds your mercy cannot heal," she said. "Then my mercy is not enough." He stared toward the city's towers. "But I will make it enough." 3 nights later came rain, driven slant by east winds, drumming siege tents white. Lightning forked, illuminating the city in strobing ghosts. With the storm arrived an envoy under heavy cloak, bearing the crowned stag and rose entwined. Sir Garth the Gallant, famed Tyrell cousin, bowed before Aegon's command tent, water rivulet sluicing his helm. "My Lady Margaery sends her plea," he said. Cersei's alchemists ready wildfire casks beneath Sepp and Shanty alike. One spark and flea bottom burns. Aegon listened, knuckles whitening around the tent pole. Tommen? A captive of his mother. Garth's face clouded. The boy king weeps nightly. She spirits him chamber to chamber, fearing blades. The High Septon demands parley at dawn before the sept, beneath open sky. No. Connington scoffed, but Aegon nodded. We meet. Rain eased at dawn, leaving mist that clung like fine gauze. Outside the ruined sept steps lay a half-circle of open ground, where grass refused city foot traffic. Aegon rode ahead with only Lemore, Connington, and 4 phantom guards masked in plain leathers, to disguise their sellsword rank. On opposite sides stood the High Sparrow, barefoot still, and beside him Queen Margaery in dove gray. 2 faith-militant knights flanked them, axes peace-bonded. The Sparrow raised hands. On this ground, the faith seeks covenant, he said. We offer sanctuary to King Tommen, to stand aside from mortal quarrel. Queen Cersei denies us. We beg your promise that when you claim the city, no flame shall lick the sept stones. Aegon dismounted, mud splashing his boots. I swear, he said, no fire started by my order will harm the faith. His gaze slid to Margaery. I would spare the city entire, if the path exists. Margaery stepped forward, rain pearls gemming her lashes. She reached beneath her cloak, produced a sealed scroll of gold-rimmed parchment. My grandmother's terms, she whispered. If you preserve Highgarden's granaries and confirm Tyrell titles, we withdraw a raise from Cersei by nightfall. The King's Guard at the Gate of the Gods will lay down arms. In exchange, she swallowed. You must name Tommen your ward. Safe, untouched, until lawful counsel decides his fate. Connington murmured protest, but Aegon lifted a hand. He took the scroll. Done. Covenant inked. The Sparrow pressed a wooden medallion carved with the 7 into Aegon's palm. May the warrior guide your sword, and the mother guard your heart. As they turned to leave, bells clanged from the city center. Alarm. Discordant. Aegon mounted fast, eyes narrowing at plumes of black smoke writhing skyward from beyond the street of steel. Lemore gasped. Wildfire? No, Aegon answered, as acrid scent caught wind. Pitch. Cersei had struck first. Inside the city, gangs loyal to the crown hurled torches into grain warehouses, rumored friendly to the dragon host. Flames blossomed, oil-rich, devouring storefronts before bucket lines could form. Gold cloaks barred sparrows from wells. Chaos fed upon fear like maggots in a wound. Watching from ramparts, Qyburn smiled. Panic breeds cracks, he said to Cersei. Through cracks, wildfire seeps. She nodded, eyes fever bright. Tonight, the bay glows green. Aegon convened council inside the siege tower nicknamed the Grey Lady for its drab canvas. Rain beat canvas still, but within, torches hissed. Connington pounded the table. She burns her own bread. By tomorrow the city riots. Then tomorrow we enter reign, Aegon replied. Lady Fell scowled. Through blood. Through precision. Aegon pointed to Haldon's sketches. Sewer schematics, old smugglers' tunnels. The forgotten dragon pit culverts. Connington leads 200 in under the hill past Maker's undercellar. Balak's elephants faint at the King's Gate, drawing scorpions. I ride with the Sparrow's penitents at Gate of the Gods when the Tyrell shields fall. Minimal destruction. Cut out the rot. And if wildfire lights the night, then we smother with water wagons. He met their eyes unwavering. No child burned tonight. Swear it. The company swore. That dusk, sparrows within the city threw open the postern of Septi Street, flooding out under white banners to join Aegon's right flank. Gold cloaks at the Gate of the Gods, seeing Tyrell Rose banners withdrawn and hearing no orders from absent commanders, slung shields aside. Gate chains rattled down. The first wedge of dragon infantry marched inside, silent as pennants, bearing torches doused to embers. Civilians peered from doorways, shock etched across soot-smudged faces. Aegon rode with them. Sword sheathed. Helm off. Hair rain-tangled. "Stay," he called to the watchers, voice echoing under stone arches. "Stay and you are safe. This city belongs to its people." Far across candle-strewn corridors, Connington led his vanguard along dark passages beneath the hill of Rhaenys. Brackish water-soaked boots, cobwebs clung like shrouds. Above, they heard faint rumble. Wagons, perhaps, or thunder. Near the undercellar stairs they found an iron-bound door, rusted. A single blow from a maul splintered hinges. They climbed into a corridor lined with dragon skulls blackened by centuries of smoke. Torchlight flickered over empty eye sockets, and each skull seemed to watch them pass. At the keep's heart, Qyburn's laboratory labored. Chains clanked, wooden winches creaked, potboys hauled clay jars sweating green phosphorescence toward catapult carts. In the gloom of his upper gallery, Qyburn consulted a firefly-etched parchment. "Deploy pods here, here and here," he directed, robed novices. "Release agents once bells ring thrice." None asked which bells. Cersei, wearing burnished mail beneath gown, surveyed from a balcony window. She felt the city's panic rise on heat thermals. Good. Let them fear a slaughter, so the moment wildfire devoured their dread they would know the face of power. Lannister power. But power shifted. From Baelor's steps, a mournful horn groaned. Once, twice, thrice. Cersei's pulse spiked. She spun to Qyburn. "Is it done?" He frowned. "Not my horn." Across the city, bells answered. But they rang discordant. Treachery or triumph, none could tell. Then shouting rose, nearer. "The gate of the gods, open!" Cersei barked orders. Seal the holdfast, yet words drowned beneath stampede of booted feet. Queensguard Sir Boros shoved into the chamber, face white. Sparrows flooded the lower ward. Goldcloaks dropped shields. Small folk chant the dragon's name. She slapped him with mailed glove. "Hold them! Bar the sept! Where's Jaime? Where?" But Boros had no answer. Outside, the city churned. Aegon's column advanced tight down Visenya's hill. Sparrows and dragon cloaks intermixing. Houses flanking the street hoisted white linens. Some even black and red banners hastily drawn in ash. Women flung flowers, faded winter roses, and children waved carved wooden dragons. Gold cloaks eyeing the unstoppable tide loosened chin straps. One by one, Aegon reined before a cluster of frightened soldiers. "Serve your city," he said gently. "Stand with us." Helmets hit cobbles. 5, then 15. Soon an entire watch row melted into the crowd. Like winter ice under spring sunlight, resistance dissolved. Yet at the Red Keep's gates, scorpions still bristled. Cersei's last bastion. From arrow loops, crossbowmen loosed. 2 sparrows fell screaming. Aegon signaled to hold shields. He dismounted, approached alone, arms wide. "No more Lannister red," he called. "Today ends. Lay down arms and walk away free." Benderu. A single crossbow bolt clattered at his feet. He did not move. Rain began again, pattering steel. On the parapet, a familiar figure in white scaled armor leaned over crenels. Sir Jaime Lannister, golden hair dulled by downpour. Eye patch covered the ruin where Vargo Hoat's blade once maimed him, yet the remaining green eye blazed. "Boy," he shouted, "whatever blood you spill here stains your crown forever." Aegon met his stare. "There need be no more blood. You know this city, sir. Open the gates." Jaime's jaw ticked. Behind him, roars echoed. Cersei's shrill commands, swords drawn against argument. Jaime looked away, perhaps toward the Tower of the Hand where his son lay hostage to fear. When he looked back, rain streaked his cheek like tears. He raised a hand, palm outward, then vanished. Moments later, chains ground, portcullis lifting. Gates creaked apart. Silence crashed. Then cheers erupted like thunder eclipsing sky. Aegon strode forward. Connington emerged from side stairwells, bloody but smiling, having seized the dragon skull corridor and disarmed Qyburn's novices before a pot could shatter. Black Balak's elephants trumpeted triumph at the distant king's gate as gold cloaks flung open yet another portal. Still, Cersei fought. Within Maegor's holdfast, she dragged Tommen by the wrist, screaming at servants to gather jewels. "They'll burn us all," she shrieked. Tommen sobbed. But Jaime burst through, sword shifted to his left hand. "Enough," he said. "It's done." Cersei backed toward the hidden passage, eyes wild. "Traitor." Father would have called it mercy. Jaime's voice cracked. "Give him the boy. Live." But mercy was language Cersei had forgotten. She raised the small green vial, wax seal broken. "Live? For what?" "To watch the harlot Margaery crow beside another pretty dragon prince. I'll give them a funeral to match Eris." She hurled the vial. Jaime lunged, catching her wrist, but the glass slipped through clawed fingers and shattered on flagstone. Green fire sputtered, steaming, spreading puddles hungry as pythons. Cersei screamed. Whether in rage or fear none could tell, as flames licked hems of her gown. Jaime dragged her back, shrugging off the crimson velvet and throwing it atop the blaze. Smothering tongues that hissed and chomped. Down corridors echoed Aegon's approaching boots. Jaime shoved a half-mad Cersei into a side chamber, barred the door behind, then strode to meet the dragon. They met beneath a vault ribbed with gargoyle arches. Jaime's sword tip scraped stone. Aegon halted, Connington at shoulder. Rainwater dripped from their cloaks, pooling in wildfire residue that still smoked faint chartreuse. "I surrender the castle," Jaime said. "On one condition. The boy, King, lives. And you end her madness without spectacle." "Bendamu." Aegon nodded. "Your king lives. Your sister. Judge her. But do not let mobs chew her bones." "It will be done in truth," Aegon promised. "Not vengeance." He extended his hand. Jaime hesitated, then clasped forearms. So, the Red Keep fell not by sword, but by grip of two men whose fathers had carved each other's epitaphs. When sunset veiled the sky in lavender, bells rang from every sept, casting peals across rooftops where wildfire never bloomed. Fires that had ravaged grain stores were guttered. Bucket lines formed by sparrows and sellswords alike doused flames before they spread to tenements. The hill of Rhaenys smelled of wet ash and trampled lilies, but smelled also of fresh bread as Tyrell wagons rolled through newly opened gates, laden with barley and rye. Aegon stood upon the ramp of the great sept of Baelor, where dragons had not trod for near a century. Small folk thronged the plaza, torches painting their faces gold. High Sparrow raised his staff. "Behold Aegon of House Targaryen," he intoned. King in fact, if not yet in coronation, who filled empty bowls before filling coffers, who spared when others burned. Bless him. The roar that answered shook pigeons from statues. Aegon felt it in his marrow. A tide swelling, unstoppable, terrifying. Yet even as cheers rolled, he saw beyond them the dark mouth of the black water where ships might appear any dawn bearing silver-haired dragons three-die key. He saw Dorne's red sun still waiting its moment. He saw winter's gray wolves raising banners once more. Conquest never ended. It only changed its accent. But he also saw children climbing shoulders to glimpse him, their eyes alight with something he dared call hope. And for that heartbeat, across spires and blood-washed cobbles, he felt the realm breathe. In Maegor's dungeons, Cersei knelt, wrists bound in silken cords. Tommen slept under Maester Pycelle's, draught in the next cell, unaware. Jaime stood watch. "Hell keep his word," Jaime whispered, though he wasn't sure which promise he meant. Cersei's laugh stuck like dry bread. "He'll parade me. He'll cut my hair. He said no spectacle." Jaime touched her cheek, gentle. "Rest." She turned away. Night deepened. From the ramparts, Aegon watched lanterns bob along the city's arteries as his officers patrolled. Lemore sidled up, cloak wrapped tight. "You did it," she said. "For tonight. Tomorrow will wait until it's asked." She placed a mother's kiss upon his temple, lingering. "I taught you prayers. You speak them well." Aegon looked east, where the narrow sea slumbered. Somewhere far, another prayer formed upon Daenerys Targaryen's lips. Two dragons breathing different faiths, but perhaps the same dream. His stomach clenched with uncertain wonder. He pictured her arrival. Fire and wings and the roar that tears sky. Would the realm rejoice or recoil? Would two dragons share one sky or collide in tempest? He recalled the boy Dre, dreams bright as scales. He would not let such dreams burn. He turned back to the city that was now his responsibility. Fires glimmered like embers waiting breath. His breath. He drew it slow, deep. It tasted of smoke, yes. But beyond smoke, he tasted rain-washed stone and the hint of apple carts near the gate of the gods. It tasted like beginning. Far below, in Flea Bottom's crooked alleys, a ragged girl crouched by a gutter, cradling a heel of bread dropped by some fat guardsman. She looked up at torchlight, flickering across a banner newly hung. A three-headed dragon crowned above a seven-pointed star. She had never known a king, but the cub born of lions. Never known mercy, but what shadowed corners offered. Yet tonight, bread warmed her palms, and no swords chased her from a doorway. She took a bite. It was not sweet, not soft, yet it filled her hollow. She chewed, swallowed, and for the first time in her memory dared to plan for dawn. "Okay." Rain whispered against the Red Keep's rose quartz windows as dusk folded itself into the corridors, bringing with it the faint metallic scent of newly sharpened steel. Fires guttered low in their braziers, sending long ribbons of ember light across vaulted ceilings where dragons once coiled in mosaic fury. Now the castle echoed with softer sounds. Boot heels halting before salutes, parchment unrolling beneath candle stubs. The hush of a realm trying to remember how peace was spelled. Aegon paced the length of the small council chamber, fingers laced behind him, feeling each flagstone like a drumbeat beneath his boots. To rule is to breathe, Connington had told him. If you stop even once to savor the sweetness, you drown in the stench. That stench still clung to broken doorframes where the Lannisters had spilt wine and lies in equal measure. Above the blackened hearth hung a hastily draped banner, Targaryen red on field of night-winged black, stitched by candle-blind septas from the Silent Sisters convent. Its corners fluttered in the draught as though restless to test their wings. The table before Aegon, once polished to reflect every candle's vanity, lay scattered now with papers. Grain inventories from the Reach, saltfish tallies from the Vale, casualty rosters inked by maesters whose hands shook from exhaustion. Atop them all lay a broken crown of gilded antlers, the boy king's circlet, its tines bent where Cersei's last fit of fury had dashed it against the marble. Aegon studied it a moment, then set it gently aside, unwilling to let twisted metal tell the child's story. John Connington stood near the far window, gauntleted fingers drumming the sill. 7,000 mouths in the Crown lands alone, he murmured. Another 12,000 refugees ride the King's Road behind our column. The Tyrell wagons help, but winter is close enough to smell. Halden Halfmaester, quill poised above a ledger, added without looking up. The Iron Bank dispatch arrives at moonrise. Interest on old Baratheon loans accrues even while thrones topple. They want a dragon's promise of repayment. Aegon turned from the stone map of Westeros, mosaicked into the floor. A promise they shall have. Though coins must wait until fields sprout again. The realm is flesh, not silver. Sir Franklin Flowers, arms crossed, cocked his head. Flesh starves without silver to buy seed. Then we mint new coin, Aegon decided. A grain dragon stamped on one side, a crowned wheat sheaf on the other. The people must see their bellies printed on every groat. A stiff silence answered. Not disapproval, merely surprise. Innovation unsettled men more than swords. But Lemore, seated at the far end of the table, smiled through her veil. Let the mint master start tomorrow, she said. Copper first. Gold can wait. Copper rides pockets where hunger sleeps. Aegon nodded once, grateful. He walked to the window where Connington brooded. Outside, lamps flickered along the outer curtain wall, each a star fallen just far enough to illuminate its own swagger. Farther still, the black water rippled moon-silver, dotted by anchored ships, whose masts bristled like a forest trapped in silent winter. Tyrell galleys, Dornish swan prow cutters, even a ragged Ibn whaler pressed into duty as grain barge. All awaited orders that had yet to be forged in any royal decree. Footsteps approached. Jaime Lannister entered, wearing a simple brigandine, dyed Lannister crimson so dark, it blended into residual dusk. His sword hung left side, new grip restitched for his left hand's master stroke. He bowed, stiff but sincere. "Your Grace." "The Queen," he hesitated on the title, "requests audience." Aegon's gaze held Jaime's. "How fares she?" "Aged lions do. Rage claws the bars, but the iron holds." Jaime's lone green eye flicked toward Connington, then back. "She asks to see Tommen." Aegon considered. "He sleeps still in the Maester's tower, under less watch than rumor pins upon him. He is safe. She will see him when the city sees daylight without smoke." Jaime inclined his head, tension easing. "I will carry your word." Connington bristled as Jaime retreated. "Leave her fangs too long and they'll find flesh." "Fangs dull in darkness," Aegon said. "I will not craft martyrs on my first fortnight's dawn." The next morning broke with gulls wheeling over quaysides busy once more with honest trade. Fishermen hauled nets heavy with silver fish that glistened like coin freshly struck. Their wives shouted prices to small folk clutching coppers new minted with dragon sigils. Each sail birthed rumors. That the prince walked flea-bottom nightly, that his sword broke only chains, that he ate the same onion pottage fed to beggars in the dragon pit infirmaries. Exaggerations, yet truth rooted in soil of deeds, not words. In the red keeps Godswood, meagre compared to Winterfell's primal grove. Aegon knelt beneath an elm that had long since strangled the old weirwood sapling planted by J. Harrys II. The elm's bark peeled like sunburnt skin, revealing scars shaped like rivers winding nowhere. There he met Princess Arianne Martell, newly arrived by swift galley, bearing Dawn's pale blade as escort. She wore orange silk embroidered with spears and sunbursts, her dark eyes lit with embers of her father's cautious fire. She bowed shallowly. "Your Grace, Sunspear greets you, though warily. My father's gout forbade his coming." Her voice carried the desert's tempered heat, never blazing, ever constant. Aegon rose, nodding. "I thank the Prince of Dorne for his prudence. How fare the sand snakes?" Arianne's smile tilted. "Eager. My cousins sharpen blades and wits in equal measure. They ask if the dragon's heir honors his mother's blood." She paused. "We remember, Aelia." "Ace do I," Aegon said, throat tightening. "I carry her voice in dreams I never dreamt." They spoke then of water rights along the Greenblood, of trade for Martell oranges and Dornish glass. But circling every word was the truth they both knew. That Dorne's armies watched the horizon, and would choose peace or war by the tilt of this meeting. At length, Aegon took from his cloak a ribbon-wrapped scroll. "A treaty," he said. "Autonomy for Dorne within the realm, its princes seated first among the small council, in memory of their long fire under dragon's wings. In return, Dornish spears will march for the Iron Throne only when Dorne's honor is affronted." Arianne unrolled, scanning quick. "And if others call dishonor where Dorne sees none, then the dragons will arbitrate as kin, not conquerors." She refolded. "I will carry this home. My father may sign, though his gout aches harder than mistrust." Aegon extended his hand. She clasped it, warm, steady. "Tell him," he said, "the Song of Elias' children is not yet finished." By week's end, delegations arrived as though the city itself had become a hearthfire drawing cold travelers. From the Vale came Lord Royce in bronze thunder greaves, pledging necklaces of airy silver for bread kitchens, if the king would guarantee trade lanes clear of Ironborn. From the Westerlands rode Lady Jane Marbrand, red hair blazing. She offered half the Lannister treasury still hiding in Casterly vaults if Aegon pardoned Lion loyalty in exchange for Lion labor rebuilding docks. In the throne room's echo, Aegon welcomed each, but accepted coin only in measures that matched equal labor. Not gold for pardon, he said, but gold for stone cutters and smiths. Forgiveness, he insisted, bore no price. Some offers stank of hidden rot. Lord Paxter Redwine sent a crate of Arbor's finest summer wine, and enclosed sealed terms for monopoly over the city taverns in perpetuity. Aegon thanked him, distributed the wine to field hospitals, and returned the parchment unsigned. When Paxter's envoy sputtered protests, Connington escorted him to the city gates with courtesy cold as grey water. Even so, shadows pooled where sun could not reach. In taverns along Muddy Way, ex-Lannister sellswords sharpened dirks, muttering that a sellsword crowning another sellsword could never wear glory unsoiled. In secret crypt chambers beneath the Dragon Pit ruins, red priests from Volantis argued visions. Some saw Aegon cloaked in holy fire. Others swore the true Azor Ahai yet sailed seas, riding dragons forged of shadow. Prophecy split tongues before steel ever did. And beyond the narrow sea, the shadow grew wings. Across the summer sea, in the palace that had once been a slaver's throne, Daenerys Targaryen stood on a marble balcony buffeted by warm marine breeze. Below, unsullied legions drilled, their spears painting orderly constellations on the yard. Drogon roosted upon the Great Pyramid's upper tier, enormous body a silhouette against sunlit azure. His wings ruffled at each distant clang, but he remained, watchful, patient. Barristan Selmy approached, white cloak flowing though long stained by desert dust. "Your Grace," he said softly, offering a parchment. "A raven reached Karth, transferred by ship to us. Aegon Targaryen has claimed King's Landing." Daenerys accepted the parchment, fingers trembling more from a lifetime's echo than from the words she had not yet read. She broke the wax. The letter bore Connington's formal hand at first, brief, deferential. Then a smaller square, tucked within, penned in ink of violet hue. She knew that color before the script unveiled itself. "Aunt," it began, "the world wrote stories in your name before I could read. Come home. Let us write the next verse together." Her breath stilled. She'd dreamt of home beneath countless stars, its walls built of memory and longing. Yet now, a nephew she had never met, a man grown in war's crucible, called her to share what he'd seized. She read on. "No throne alone can shoulder us both, but the realm can. Bring your wisdom, your dragons, your heart. I save a place beside me beneath the Red Keep's bones." She closed her eyes. The city that belonged to her brother's dreams had always lived in hers as promise. Would it welcome her as queen, or as dragon to be caged? Beneath her, Drogon spread a wing, dislodging a river of dust. She felt the pull. Sky, fire, the taste of ash and freedom. Barristan stepped closer. "Your thoughts, Your Grace?" She lifted the letter. "Westeros stands no longer under lions, but whether dragon rules or dragon shares, that remains a question only dragons can answer." She looked east, where the sun set behind the pyramid, its fire kissing the sea. "We ready sails." Weeks later, the Red Keep's towers sprouted banners like spring buds as delegates flooded the newly convened Great Council. Highborn and humble alike thronged the throne room, whose floor Rhaenys Dragon's fire had once melted into rippled waves of black glass. Now the waves reflected hopeful faces, and skeptical ones too. Tommen, thin as a reed, sat under guard near the dais, fussing with a patched cloak Feli Stokeworth had sewn. Maester Balabar stood knee-bent behind him, whispering tales of wooden knight figurines and lemon cakes to keep tears at bay. Across the hall, Margaery stood in Tyrell green over cream, the stitching of her bodice depicting wheat bending under wind. She caught Aegon's eye and inclined her head the barest degree. Here, within these walls, her offer of marriage remained unclaimed but alive. The hall's hum quieted as Aegon mounted the dais, wearing no crown yet, only a circlet of braided leather bound by silver dragon scales, symbol of a promise unfulfilled until realm and kin ratified. Connington, Lemore, and the High Sparrow took positions to either side. Jaime Lannister stood at the foot of the throne stairs, arms folded, sentinel half lion, half penitent. Aegon raised his hand. "Lords and ladies, brothers and sisters of the realm." His voice carried not from force but from focus, each syllable enunciated clear as minted copper. "Today we name council, to weigh the fates of crown and country, of grace and guilt. In this hall once rang the screams of tyranny. Let now ring only the steel of justice tempered by mercy." Whispers rippled. The High Sparrow stepped forward, reading accused names. First came Qyburn, dragged forth pale and smiling as though the world were a vivisection awaiting his scalpel. His crimes unfurled like scrolls. Experiments on living men, wildfire hoarded in cellars, the creation of monstrous nights. Evidence, pots of luminescent green and broken chains, lay displayed. His defense, the Crown's command. The hall recoiled when Connington's men rolled out a barrel scorched where a fire had half exploded. Within it, charred bones smaller than a child still glowed faintly with sorcerous hue. Qyburn watched, unblinking. Sentence: death by dropping from the King's Gate battlements into the black water, chained within one of his own wildfire casks. A gasp, but none protested. Aegon's nod sealed it. Next, Sir Boros Blount and Red Keep Turncloak captains who'd enforced Cersei's burn orders. They pleaded loyalty, claimed ignorance of wildfire's scale. Witnesses contradicted. Small folk, testifying from tear-blotched stands of how soldiers torched grain barns. For them, service in the Night's Watch or exile across the shivering sea. Most chose black. Then Cersei Lannister herself. Chains rattled as she was led in wearing a simple wool shift. Hair cropped, short. Her green eyes still blazed, yet beneath them bruises of sleepless nights betrayed humanity the realm rarely glimpsed. She stared at Aegon as though he were a mirror reflecting every grief she'd carved into herself. The High Sparrow listed charges: treason, murder, consorting with alchemists to burn innocents, incest with her twin unfit to stand trial as king but witness. Each charge, evidence offered, signed confessions from pyromancers, Jaime's own sworn statement, ledger logs of wildfire moved. Silence thickened like tar. Cersei laughed then, a bark more than a melody. Men judge lions, but sheep remain sheep. My father fed you order. My son fed you mercy. You devour both and chew for more. She looked to Aegon. Crown me villain. It suits me. Aegon stepped down one stair, meeting her on level ground. I crown no villain. I weigh truth. He turned to the gathered. The realm may sentence her, but I offer North Wall mercy. Let Cersei ride stripped of titles to the wall, to live her life among the brothers she once scorned. Gasps. Murmurs. Mercy deeper than blood called. Aegon continued. She goes under escort. Her son safe here, taught by mesters, until his manhood decides which path he walks. Any who reject may speak. A sudden hush. Even Margaery kept counsel. The High Sparrow bowed acceptance. Jaime's shoulders sagged. Whether relief or regret, none could know. Cersei glared, jaw steel tight, then spat on the floor. Better the wall than a dragon's leash, she hissed. Guards led her away, and so justice tempered by mercy forged its first blade. That night, Aegon wandered the rooftop walkways above the Maiden Vault, listening to the city's new heartbeat. Lanterns wove a net of warm light across streets once slick with fear. Somewhere, a musician plucked a lute. Tentative chords of an old Stormlands ballad about seabirds and rain. It drifted up on daisies of sound and died upon the parapet wind, yet left fragrance of hope. Lemore found him leaning into moonlight. Your mercy weaves fine cloth, she said, but winters unravel threads if sewn too thin. I know. He exhaled. Tomorrow Connington leads grain trains up the Roserad. The Reach can spare. The North cannot. The North may not accept, Lemore warned. Their banners still gather around Winterfell. Rumor says a white direwolf runs before an army of free folk and shattered men. Jon Snow holds the wall. Aegon turned, remembering letters unopened while war hammered his door. The bastard of Winterfell? Stannis Baratheon's killer of kings, some say. Others call him king himself. He calls what matters to him honor, family. Aegon considered. Send ravens. Invite him to council. Wolves and dragons must share the sky or tear each other apart. He paused. Send another raven across the narrow sea. To my aunt. She must know we keep beacon lit. Then. Lemore inclined her head. Hope travels faster than black wings. North of the neck, winter's first snows drifted across Last Hearth and Carhold, blanketing charred farmland. Under those clouds rode men wrapped in patchwork furs, shields painted white with ghostly wolf prints. They followed Jon Snow southward, answering the Stark in him more than the Night's Watch oath he once wore. At his side paced Ghost, fur bright as death's final silence. News reached them of a dragon prince on the throne and a lioness in chain. Jon listened, face unreadable. Winter judges all, he told Tormund Giantsbane. We see how he fares by spring. In the Isles of Pike, Vickers' beacon thrummed with stormlight. Euron Greyjoy, patch-eyed and smiling, drew a knife across his palm and let blood spatter maps showing a kraken's tentacles curling round a dragon's tail. The realm softens under mercy, he crooned. Let Iron Price harden it again. He sent ships, long, sleek reavers, into the sunset sea, hunting grain galleys bound for King's Landing. Word of attacks reached Aegon within a fortnight. He slammed fist on council table. I spared their fishermen. They repay with drowned steel. He turned to Franklin Flowers. Ready the royal fleet, what still floats, and send ravens to Lady Marbrand. We need Westerland hulls. Promise tariff cuts on Lannisport wine. He rubbed temples. And dispatch envoys to Lords Hightower and Parley. The Reach's Grinwater fleet must guard the Mander's Mouth. Connington tapped a ledger. Every ship we send to sea is one less hauling grain upriver. Then we take the sea back, not stitch it shut. Aegon said. Mercy cannot feed on itself. 2 moons later, the realm stirred under new banners. In the Reach, Olenna Tyrell died peacefully at Highgarden, leaving Margaery's younger brother Willis as Lord Paramount Dorte. Willis, crippled yet astute, sent a white raven pledging his voice to Aegon's council, on condition that Highgarden's maesters oversee reconstruction of King's Road bridges vital for harvest wagons. Aegon agreed, appointing Willis Master of Roads without hesitation. In Dorne, Prince Doran signed the Autonomy Treaty, returning with Arianne a chest of sand-silk banners fused with dragons rampant beside Sunspear. Dornish longbows arrived on ships bearing citrus and fiery wines. A feast celebrated their union. Lemon cake spiced with chili, Dornish red flowing like molten rubies, minstrels singing of Elias' children finally walking under stars, free of treachery. But beyond feasts, cracks appeared. Ironborn raiders struck the Shield Islands, burning villages. Letters from the Wall described whites, sighted beyond the Frostfangs. And across the sea, Daenerys' armada assembled. Dozens of Meereenese triremes refitted with ballistae and Tari warships under Cellsail banners. 3 great hulks retrofitted as dragon barns. The wind of destiny blew both ways. Early spring thaw found Aegon astride his gray steed on the banks of the Tumblestone, overseeing repair of the collapsed Ruby Ford Bridge where his father had died. Stones shaped by masons from River Run now fit together, recarving the arch across water that gleamed red only in memory. He spoke with carpenters, waded mud to pull ropes taut, laughed when a runaway plank splashed water upon his cloak. Small folk, watching from riverbank, spread tales. The Dragon King built bridges where others built braziers. That evening, as campfires dotted the valley, a lone rider galloped down the river road. Snow dusted his black curls. His cloak bore the direwolf. Jon Snow dismounted before Aegon's pavilion, Ghost prowling behind, red eyes wary. Guards moved, but Aegon stepped forward. Brothers in blood, if not in creed, Jon said, voice roughened by wind. I bring the North's greeting. Aegon clasped his forearm. Welcome, the hall awaits. He guided Jon inside where warmth and spiced wine waited. They sat opposite the hearth. Jon studied flames. You sent ravens asking meat. I come because winter's jaw's close. The realm's grain may feed the south, but snows choke our wagons. My sister Sansa holds Winterfell. She will not bow to a king she has not judged. No. Aegon nodded, listening. I am no lord, Jon continued. Yet free folk and stark men follow my word. We ask, lift tariffs on salt cod and furs so our traders may barter for southern grain. In return we guard the wall with double garrison. And we ask that Ned Stark's bones? Seized by Lannisters, return home. Aegon rose, fetched a wooden chest from behind the chair. He set it between them, opened the lid. Within lay a bundle, draped in dire wolf-stamped cloth. Lord Stark rides for Winterfell tomorrow, escorted under dragon banner. As for grain, we will send it. Tariffs fall to half. In exchange, the Night's Watch receives new boots, tallow, and steel arrowheads each season. Jon looked up, tension easing. You play fair. No, Aegon said. I play for the realm. They clasped forearms. In that grip, the realm's pulse thumped stronger. Ships sailed up the Blackwater weeks later, hulls bearing sigils of House Tarth and Arryn, bringing stonecutters and white granite to rebuild the Sept's fractured dome. Aegon greeted each craftsman on dock, learned their names, paid coin before toil, not after. Word spread to distant hamlets. The king's purse bled gold, but his heart minted trust. Yet every dawn ravens perched heavier with foreign ink. Euron's fleet blocked the gullet, seized red wine supply lines. Corsairs claiming Dornish colors raided Volantene merchantmen. And one night, a Myrish mirror sent Connington's spies a glimmer. Sails black as sin. Dragon figureheads carved into prows. Daenerys' host crossing the narrow sea. The small council convened in hush. Haldon unrolled maps. 2,000 unsullied, 3,000 freedmen spears. A Khalasar of light horse, 30 trihems, 3 dragons. Franklin flowers exhaled. Our walls remember dragonfire. Margaery, now informal consort though vows awaited Sept rebuild, leaned forward. But they remember mercy too. She freed Slaver's Bay. Freedmen follow her like dawn. Aegon stood. She is blood of my blood. I will not greet her with spears. Connington stiffened. She may claim throne alone. Then the realm will judge who earned trust. Aegon's voice softened. I will sail to Dragonstone. Greet her before rumor does. Dragonstone's parapets bristled with ancient gargoyles, carved like shrieking wyverns. The sky above echoed those shapes now. Real dragons circling. Black and green and cream gold. Drogon roared, a sound that rattled every window shutter from the Valyrian courtyard to the sea caves. Aegon stood on the windswept causeway, cloaks snapping, as her ships dropped anchor and unsullied ranks deployed with silent precision. At the prow of the flagship, Daenerys stood, hair pale silver, eyes amethyst, cloak of twilight blue that matched the bay's deep currents. She disembarked atop a narrow ramp, Missandei at her side, Grey Worm commanding rear guard. Aegon walked to meet her alone, Connington and Balak holding distance. Wind tangled their cloaks as they halted a blade's length apart. Aegon? She said first, voice like bells tempered by desert storms. I see my brother in your face. And my mother too. Her gaze softened. You look like the songs. And you, he answered, look like sunrise. Silence. Charged. Then both smiled. Slowly, as though discovering the realm's lost childhood, Aegon knelt, not in fealty, but welcome. She extended a hand, raising him. They walked the beach, words flowing like tide. He told of Storm's End, of bridges rebuilt, of a lioness spared. She spoke of Marie's chains broken, of plague fires quenched, of children freed from pits. They laughed at differences in their Valyrian accents, wept at memories of visories, promised no child would bear that grief again. Inside Dragonstone's ancient throne room, lit by braziers that burned rum-scented driftwood, they reconvened with councils. Tyrion Lannister, short of beard and sharp of wit, joined, eyeing Connington with wary mirth. Varys emerged from shadows to greet old friend and new king both. Spiderwebs connecting continents now drawn to one locus. They spoke of war, no longer between them but around them. Of iron-born raids choking trade. Of White Walkers whispered beyond the wall. Of Euron's mad pact with priests. Of the drowned god promising krakens of legend. Daenerys uncurled a map. If we fight together. Aegon placed his dagger's tip on pike. First, we break iron. They clasped wrists over the map's salt-stained parchment. Dragon and dragon forging pact, not of conquest, but of covenant. Above, Drogon alighted on the ancient tower, roaring lightning loud. From the shore storm clouds answered with thunderclap. The island seemed to exhale, remembering a time when Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters had drawn swords under these very basalt walls. Now 2 dragons stood where once 3 had. But perhaps, in the trust that sparked between violet eyes and violet eyes, a new fire hatched. Stronger than numbers, deeper than blood alone. Back in King's Landing, bells sang again. A tune for arrival of twin sovereigns. Citizens flooded streets, craned necks to see dragons wheel overhead in intricate aerial ballet. Sun shone on scales. Scattering prisms against the rebuilt Sept's half-scaffolded dome. Workers paused chisels. Children shrieked delight rather than fear. For the first time since Aerys's brittle reign, dragons' shadows brought hope rather than horror. In the throne room, 2 thrones now stood. The Iron Throne, jagged, ancient, and beside it, a new seat forged of river oak, shaped like intertwined wings, polished but unadorned. Aegon insisted it bear no swords. Steel frightens counsel, he told carpenters. Oak encourages it. They called it the Council Throne. Daenerys entered first, barefoot in tradition of Nethi freedom festivals. Drogon's scale pinned at her breast like star set aflame. A hush fell. Aegon followed, simple cloak clasped by pin of Valyrian steel. They halted before the thrones. Aegon drew his sword, plain steel still, not black fire, and laid it across the Iron Throne's steps. I won this seat by mercy, he said. But mercy crowned alone may fail. I ask the realm, share it. He turned to Daenerys, who rested a hand upon his shoulder, eyes shining. Then she knelt, though some swore dragons never knelt. And together they rose, facing the gathered. High Sparrow, Willas Tyrell, Arianne Martell, Jon Snow, Marjorie Tyrell, Jaime Lannister, wearing white cloak once more, and others. The High Sparrow lifted both hands. 2 souls, 1 blood, pledged to guide not rule, to heal not dominate. So witness the 7. Bells tolled, clear, resonant, unbroken. Daenerys spoke next, voice ringing beyond walls. We reign not as conquerors, but as stewards. The throne's blades remind us. Rule has cost, but the oak reminds. Growth follows cut. We vow to break only chains, bind only wounds, and temper justice with mercy. Cheers thundered beyond windows. Doves released, soared between dragons overhead. Even the river seemed to hush, tides listening. Yet mercy cannot still all storms. Word arrived that same hour. Euron Greyjoy's silence had captured 3 Tyrell grain galleys, their crews crucified on masts facing east. His fleet sailed for Fair Isle, burning. And from the far north, a raven's feathers rhymed with frost, brought Jon Snow dire warning. Night's winds carried more than snow. Shadows with blue eyes marched south. Aegon handed the raven to Daenerys. Their gaze met, 2 violets ablaze. Iron in the west, ice in the north, he murmured. Fire stands between, she replied. And so the realm, newly born into spring's breath, braced for winter's roar and ocean's wrath. Weeks blurred. Aegon rode west with Daenerys at his side. unsullied phalanxes marching flank to flank with Stormland spears and Dornish horse archers. At Tumbleton they met Tyrell levies. At Golden Grove, Oakheart knights. Each host added scale to Dragonhide, forging the largest army Westeros had seen since the Dance of the Dragons. War horns echoed across fields where barley sprouted timid green shoots, promising harvest should peace survive. In camp by the Mander, Aegon sparred with Grey Worm beneath flickering torchlight. Sweat sluiced their brows, steel kissed steel in disciplined snaps. After, they shared waterskin. Grey Worm spoke seldom, but that night he said, "You fight like man who fears losing more than dying." Aegon wiped blade. "Losing means others die." Grey Worm nodded, understanding deeper than words. At council tents, Tyrion poured arbor gold into chipped cups. He plotted sea routes with Davos Seaworth, now master of ships, to lure Euron into straits where Dragonfire could trap iron hulls. Davos insisted on chain booms across Fair Isle Gulf. Tyrion approved, scribbling orders for blacksmiths to forge hooks as long as mast whales. Dawn saw ravens dispatched. Dusk saw ravens return with tidings. Euron anchored off Fair Isle, daring pursuit. And so, the dragons obliged. Aegon's flagship, Storm's Mercy, led. Daenerys rode Drogon above curling surf. Rhaegar and Viserion matched wing beats, bronze and cream reflecting dying sun. The Battle of Fair Isle raged for 3 days. Ironborn scorpions ripped holes in Rhaegar's wing. Dragonfire turned 5 longships to floating pyres that lit night like false dawn. On the second day, Euron's silence rammed the Tyrell galley Harvest Moon, boarding with axes. Aegon, seeing the Kraken sail, leapt from Storm's Mercy deck. Swam through oil-streaked water under arrow rain, climbed the galley's splintered side. He met Euron atop the quarterdeck, sword crossing nightfall dark axe. Their duel flashed amid mast fires. Euron laughed with each parry, blood from his forearm painting deck. "Dragon boy," he rasped. "Come taste salt of real kingship." Lightning forked sea behind them. Aegon answered with silent fury, disarming the axe of nightfall in a whirling feint Connington had drilled into him since boyhood. He pressed blade to Euron's throat, yet spared him a heartbeat, echoing mercy. That pause cost dear. An iron-born arrow thudded Aegon's shoulder. Euron kicked free, dove overboard, vanished into storm. Daenerys descended on Drogon, searing the Silence's deck to molten tar. Ironborn leapt screaming into waves turned to steam. At dawn, Kraken banners smoldered, survivors shackled, and the Silence foundered half-sunken. No sign of Euron's corpse, only ocean's grin. Victory rang, but fear lingered. Aegon's wound festered. Maester Kevan cleaned arrow's bite. Yet infection spread like wildfire unseen. Fever dreams clutched him as Fleet returned east to King's Road. He saw the wall melt into river of blue flame. Saw Jon Snow face a horn-blowing giant of ice. Saw Cersei stalking Nightfort halls crowned with icicles. Yet within dreams, a voice. "Elias, perhaps," whispered, "fire survives." When he woke, Daenerys sat vigil, her palm upon his brow. "Rest," she whispered. "Rest and heal. The realm needs both hearts beating." He gripped her hand, warmth staving off chill. In King's Landing, Maester Balabar studied ravens bearing parchment as brittle as snow-bitten leaves. From Eastwatch came panic. Dead things marched. Jon Snow's messages pleaded, "Dragonglass shipments, men of stone will not stand against men of ice." Aegon, still weak but resolute, dispatched northern wagons laden with obsidian from Dragonstone's mines. Grey Worm volunteered unsullied detachments to man the night fort. Daenerys sent Viserion north with crates of arrowheads strapped to harness. The dragon flew into night, wings beating aurora-glow skies. South, reconstruction flourished. The Sept of Baelor's new dome rose. Stained glass artisans from less inlaid scenes, not of conquest but of healing. A dragon cradling a stag. A wolf sheltering a rose. Doves soaring above a kraken bound in vines. Small folk gathered daily to watch colors emerge, marveling that power might craft beauty as deftly as fear. But fates, seldom rest easy. At dusk on the festival of maiden spring, 3 cloaked figures slipped down the red keep servant stair, blades hidden in loaves of bread. They made for Tommen's chamber, intent on lion cub revenge. Jaime intercepted them, parried shadows in narrow hall. One dagger grazed his arm. His left-hand sword skewered 2 assassins. The third fled, only to collide with Sir Franklin rounding the corner. Franklin's mailed fist ended the chase. Interrogation revealed names of estranged Lannister cousins, plotting to enthrone Tommen anew by martyrdom. Their conspiracy died before dawn under Sparrow justice. Confession, penance, vows of silence. Aegon visited Tommen, found the boy weeping not from fear, but guilt. "They kill for me," Tommen trembled. Aegon knelt. "Men choose their deeds. We choose ours. You will grow to guide them away from shadows." He placed a wooden sword in the boy's hands. "Learn its weight, so you never mistake how heavy choices feel." Summer's heat ripened plums in the godswood, when Daenerys and Aegon wed beneath the heart tree in the Dragon Pit garden, where rubble had been cleared and saplings planted. The ceremony blended Valyrian rites, drinking from obsidian cups incised with runes, with 7-fold blessings spoken by the High Sparrow. Jon Snow stood as witness for the north, Arianne Martell for the south, Willis Tyrell for the reach, Davos Seaworth for the seas. Margaery smiled, a friend now, though some whispered she and Willis plotted triple alliance. Jaime gave bride away, an odd lion handing dragon to dragon with solemn grace. When vows sealed, Drogon roared overhead, lighting brazier pyres that spelled in flame the sigil of House Targaryen wreathed by 7 stars. Small folk cheered. In taverns they sang the dragon's dawn, a new ballad of 2 thrones forged to heal. That night, in the royal solar, Aegon and Daenerys sat alone, maps spread. No crowns rested on pillows. Those waited in vault until war ended. Candles flickered. "Tomorrow," Aegon said, "we ride north. Ice waits." Daenerys traced a river line with fingertip. "And hearts trust we will return." She smiled. "Something fragile yet unbreakable. Together, we bring fire where shadow treads." He caught her hand. "And mercy where fire burns too bright." Outside the city slumbered wrapped in hope's new cloak. Yet far beyond sight, north winds gathered unnatural teeth, and sea storms hid kraken survivors, nursing gods darker than night. The tale of 2 dragons had only lifted wings. The sky stretched wide with storms and starlight both. But for this heartbeat, within stone walls that once echoed screams, laughter rose instead, hushed, unsure, but alive. And in the hush after laughter, 2 rulers listened, vowing to guard every fragile note until dawn. Dawn came. Ravens rose from rookery towers, beating wings into pinkening sky. Their messages scattered like seeds. The king and queen ride for Winterfell. Grain caravans depart Golden Grove. Ironborn fleet shattered at Victarion's mutiny. First shipment of dragonglass reaches Castle Black. Hope traveled those wings. On the courtyard cobbles, unsullied ranks formed silent phalanx. Dothraki, outriders, braided mane and tail of steeds, restless to gallop fields of other realms. Northmen volunteers bore spears tipped obsidian black. Dornish sand steeds stomped, archers fingering yew-bows. Dragons flapped overhead, casting dawn-bright shadows that rippled across banners. Wolf and rose, sun and spear. Kraken broken, crowned dragon flanked by oak leaves. Aegon swung into saddle, arrow scar fully healed, Connington at right, Jaime at left. Daenerys mounted silver mare, cloak brushing Drogon's talon-scarred harness. She raised hand. Troops knelt in single wave, then rose as one. Trumpets sounded. Gates opened. They rode out, 2 at vanguard. Armies swelling behind like river fed by every stream of grief and grace the realm had ever known. Ahead lay leagues of road, walls of ice, and enemies woven of night. Yet behind them bloomed seeds, bridges rebuilt, domes rising, breadline laughter, a boy king learning steel's weight, a city daring to believe. And overall, banners streamed, not in triumph but in covenant, oaths bound by fire and mercy both.